You're listening to ABC Radio Queensland.
Yeah, the time's 28 minutes to 10. Now, a public meeting has heard 20 to 30 professional fishers in North Queensland could be forced out of business if the government proceeds with plans to drastically reduce fishing for Spanish mackerel. Queensland fisheries say the unfished biomass for the popular species has plummeted to just 17%, a level that requires urgent intervention, including cuts of up to 80% on fishing effort. So if you're doing it for a business, how are you going to go with 80% less? Dan McCarthy from the Cairns Professional Gaming Fishing Association fronted a meeting, and we're told around 250 people were there last night. It was held in a suburb of Cairns, and Mr. McCarthy says that number demonstrates the deep-seated anger and mistrust around this data that's being used to justify the cuts.
Governments have had a long history of using the divide and conquer method to pit recreational fishermen against commercial fishermen, and we've sadly seen that over decades. But Spanish mackerel is a unique fish where it's very heavily relied upon by commercial and recreational fishermen and the commercial sector. It's all line caught fish, so there's no just that whole stigma of net fishing and whatever, that it doesn't exist in the mackerel fishery as such. And they're very important fish, not only for commercial fishermen, recreational fishermen, tackle shops, boat shops, the restaurant trade, the takeaways. It's going to have a huge effect on the whole regional economy in our local towns all up and down the coast if the government pushes ahead with these severe restrictions or their initial talk about a total fishery shutdown.
Is it the popularity, the increasing popularity of the Spanish mac that has led to this problem with the sustainability of the stock levels?
Well, the catch rates and the overall catches, they just simply haven't moved. They haven't moved at all. There was a distinct dip in the take in 2005, and we all know what that coincided with in 2005. Well, the Great Barrier Reef got rezoned, and most of us lost 30 to 40% of our productive fishing grounds. So naturally, if you take away access to a lot of your key areas, of course there's going to be a decline in the catch. But since then, it's been very, very steady. There's a very slight up or down each year. You certainly can't, no matter which way you look at those graphs, there's no way in the world you can say the catch rate has gone down since 2005 when the reef was rezoned. It's very, very consistent.
Richard Gilmore, did you want to add anything to that as a commercial fisher, as someone that's kind of out there trying to catch these fish for a living? What's your observations over a period of time in the fishery?
Yeah, well, we're trying to get our heads around exactly how the data has been applied with the methodology. So we're getting told that the commercial fishing industry is increasing effort, and the effort with regards to catching Spanish mackerel, according to Fisheries Queensland scientists, is that we're working twice as hard to catch the same amount of fish. And we are aware that there are many commercial fishermen who have left the industry. The other thing that happened with the rezoning, also around the early 2000s, the price of live coral trout went through the roof. And a lot of fishing operations, like my operation in particular, are diversified operations. Of the live trout boats that are on the east coast of Queensland, more than 95% of those have Spanish mackerel endorsements. Now, the ability for a live trout fisherman to be in a Spanish mackerel area targeting Spanish mackerel on any given day whilst targeting live coral trout is not really feasible. The live coral trout come out of much shallower water and they're not using the equipment. So when we target live trout, we have a hand line, one hook, one sinker, that's it. And we move very quickly. We normally would do 20 to 40 hangs a day. And yeah, the targeting of Spanish mackerel really isn't existent in the coral trout industry. My biggest concern with Fisheries Queensland, and this has been raised in the working group meetings, is that if I catch, as an example, 80 fish in a day, and that could be coral trout, red emperor, nannygai, across the whole spectrum, and I catch one Spanish mackerel, it is officially recorded on the data, Queensland Fisheries data, as me doing a Spanish mackerel day fishing. That's why we're not believing what the science is telling us. So the effort from the commercial sector is not what is being represented in this stock assessment.
It sounds like doing nothing is not going to be an option, though. What are commercial fishermen prepared to do, or what position are you willing to take to try and satisfy the fisheries managers that you do have sustainability of the fishery at your heart?
Well, realistically, it's very hard to quantify that given that we don't accept the science. So what we're prepared to do is, well, ultimately we'll do what is dictated to us. I don't believe we'll actually get a say in that matter. We've put forward our arguments, and unfortunately there's driving forces behind all of this that probably will mean our arguments won't mean much at all, and that's why the meeting is happening tonight.
Daniel McCarthy, you are obviously an instigator of the meeting. It sounds like some of the discussions are going to be highly technical. Why is it that you have been compelled to invite your own guest speakers and scientists along? Shouldn't it be Queensland Fisheries that you hear from?
Well, Queensland Fisheries are obviously playing the game the way they see it. So it's going to be an interesting night, and we're really putting the heat back on the Minister, who really needs to force the department to have a hell of a lot of better look at the situation and get a bit more realistic view on what's going on.
Well, I have spoken with Queensland Fisheries and the Minister's office. They both point to the fact that the stock assessment was released last year and independently verified by a former CSIRO fisheries scientist. Isn't that good enough?
Well, it's interesting that the Minister came out even just as late as yesterday and said that the stock assessment had been peer-reviewed and it agreed with the stock assessment. Well, that's actually not correct, because when you read the peer review, which I have done several times, there's a number of places in there that the peer reviewer very openly and very strongly challenges the lack of data, challenges the models they've used, challenges the way they've looked at it. And he does quite clearly say, finishing off his executive summary, he says he does not agree with a lot of the findings within the stock assessment, particularly on the future forecast. So that is certainly not what the Minister is trying to portray, that the peer reviewer just, effectively rubber stamp the stock assessment. That is certainly not the case. And that brings more questions again as to what's really going on here.
In the absence of any decision makers in the room tonight, what are you hoping that you'll achieve? Is this a lynch mob, or are there some solutions that you believe could still be put on the table?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that we can do to improve fishing. I think it's in a great shape, but I am hoping to have some productive meetings with the Minister moving forward. As I know, there's people all up and down the coast have been ringing me constantly for the last few weeks, wanting to have a similar sort of meeting in their area, because there's a number of places that have a lot of Spanish mackerel fishermen, recreational and commercial, and they're all very, very, very cranky about the position that Queensland Fisheries has taken and the lack of inspecting what's going on from the Minister and his department. And it's just interesting, Charlie, that most of those places that are calling out for meetings, they all just happen to be in very marginal government seats. So they sound like a pretty good place to me to have more public meetings. But we need to get some better solutions. And I'm quite happy to sit down with the Minister and work productively towards some compromised positions so that the fisheries is looked after, as well as the stock itself being looked after and people that responsibly use it. So that's what we're always about, but we certainly will not stand by and let a government steamroll over us with science, or what they call science, when it's very, very different for what people that have been spending their lifetime out on the water, very different to what we're seeing out there on the water.
That's Dan McCarthy from the Cairns Professional Game Fishing Association, who has links to the Regional Australia Party, and he is a former candidate, by the way, for the Qatar Australia Party. He was speaking there to Charlie McKillop, and you also heard there from Richard Gilmore, who represents the commercial fishing sector on the Spanish Mackerel Working Group. He was not happy. Queensland Fisheries, by the way, about half an hour ago, have emailed a statement about this. So I'm just going to read it out. It says, and I quote, for its part, Queensland Fisheries has not put up anyone to be interviewed on the way the stock assessments are determined and why unfished biomass has plummeted to critical levels. However, it says, over the last decade, all assessments show a consistent declining and downward trend for Spanish mackerel stocks. The science of stock assessments has also improved over this time using the latest technology. The recent independent peer review shows our 2020 assessment of that 17% figure is of a high quality and can be used to base future management decisions upon. That's coming directly from the Queensland government. You're on ABC Local Radio Queensland. I